KU. You got Duke there, who always is there. But I like Michigan State, honestly.
That's who I picked. Yeah, that's who I picked.
Yeah. So I'm with you there. I love what Miles Bridges is doing for them. Tom has been at multiple times. And this is the kind of team that can give Duke problems. We saw how they fared in the ACC championship game against North Carolina. But I would love to see an Elite Eight matchup between Kansas and Michigan State for the right to get to the Final Four. I'm not the biggest Duke fan, so I'm not really going to speak on Duke. I respect the greatness of what Mike Krzyzewski is, and he's been as a basketball coach, 5 national championships, and what he's done there. But at the same time, I like KU and Michigan State, with Michigan State getting out of that side of the bracket. So I like Villanova out of the East. I like Michigan State out of the Midwest. Out of the West bracket, that's going to be a tough bracket to break down, to be honest with you, because this year it isn't necessarily the strongest number 1 seed that we've seen in years past. You got my alma mater in this bracket, the University of Missouri Tigers, with my man Michael Porter Jr. coming back to this basketball team. They've got a tough first-round matchup with Leonard Hamilton's Florida State Simmons. But that's going to be a tough bracket. North Carolina, a lot of folks think they could either make a run or get bounced fairly early in this tournament. So it will depend on what Joel Berry can do with his leadership for this team. Obviously, the defending, national champions coming into this tournament. But Michigan is playing really well right now. Michigan has played extremely well in that Big Ten championship, was able to get themselves a Big Ten Conference championship win there, and is a dangerous team. John Beilein and this team is a very dangerous basketball team. So if I had to pick right now coming out of this bracket, I'm gonna go with North Carolina. The championship pedigree and the experience that this team has, I believe, can carry them to an opportunity. Because I don't like necessarily Xavier coming out of this bracket as good as they were throughout this season. I like North Carolina and the experience that they bring, and I think that could carry them to this Final Four. But they'll have a tough Elite Eight matchup if they do find themselves playing against a team in Michigan State later on in that.
Right, I've seen that. But back over to the Midwest, right? And I like your picks too, man. I definitely like that the first 3 because I picked them. But anyway, in the Midwest, guess who I had Michigan State beaten to get to the Final Four? A team that's been overlooked, and they're strong. They're very strong inside, right? And they have veteran guard leadership. Seton Hall. A team that was supposed to have been tough last year and slipped up in the first game when they went out to Colorado to play. Now they're playing in, let me see, where they're playing in. They're playing in Wichita, right? And that shouldn't be too bad for them. And they got North Carolina State, which is, I think, is another sleeper. The winner of that, they said, should be able to knock off some teams. The winner of North Carolina State and Seton Hall.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting because KU is playing a virtual home game. Going to be playing 2 virtual home games in Wichita. So they're going to have that crowd on their side down there. KU travel extremely well. I went to the University of Missouri, and I saw Kansas a lot when I was in college, and KU fans travel extremely well, and that place will be loud. That's an interesting bracket because you got a team in Auburn who, of course, won the SEC regular season championship.
Right.
And Bruce Pearl and that team has been a surprise, obviously, to say the least. But then you have a tough Clemson basketball team out of the ACC. That's going to be a tough bracket, and probably the toughest bracket as I'm looking at it, that we've seen the Midwest with KU, Michigan State, Duke, an SEC champion in Auburn, a tough Seton Hall team. That's going to be a tough bracket for Michigan State to get out of, but I do like them to get out of the Midwest.
Okay, which is the toughest bracket to get out, and which is the easiest to get out?
Oh, man. As I was looking at it, honestly, I think the Midwest is the toughest bracket. When you start to look at the overall makeup of some of these teams there, you have a Big 12 champion in Kansas. You have an SEC champion in Auburn who is at a 4 seed. You've got Duke, who's been playing, extremely well all year long. You got Michigan State, there. You've got a tough Clemson team out of the ACC. that's a pretty tough bracket when you start to break it down based on some of the champions that are in that particular conference. You have some individual teams and some other brackets that make it a little bit difficult, but when you look at the South bracket, I think that's the second toughest bracket when you have a team in Arizona who was, I believe, underseeded at 4.
Right.
This is a team that has probably the best player in the country in DeAndre Ayton. And yes, they've had their, issues and troubles with the FBI investigation. But when you look at that South bracket, you've got Virginia, ACC, champion there. You've got Kentucky. You've got Arizona. You've got a tough Tennessee team there. Cincinnati, who's been no joke all year long, playing extremely well there. So if I had to rank the brackets in order, I would say the Midwest would be the toughest bracket. The South would be the second best. The East would be the third, and then I think the West. The weakest bracket.
Yeah. You know what? It seems like they make the West the weakest every year, man. Ever since when they used to throw Georgetown out there back in the Patrick Ewing days, they used to always throw Georgetown out there, and they roll through the West. They always make that West weak. But for a team like Xavier, that's the reason I picked them. The reason I picked them is because they're away from home, they're away from family. The people that's going to trick it out there, you know what I'm saying, it won't be enough distraction. They're going to go out there to play ball, and at the same time, they're a hungry team because they feel that they should have beat Villanova out to win the East. Big East and the tournament. And both of them, they just barely lost of, getting to where they need to be. So I feel they got something to prove, man. That's the only reason I picked them, man. But that North Carolina team look like they can go back, But for a lot of people that's in the chat that love North Carolina, I don't want to see them go back. Hey, but one more thing on this NCAA before we move to the next subject. What you think about Oklahoma State not making it, man?
Oh man, yeah, that's tough because when you look at Oklahoma, who a lot of folks feel should not have got in, especially the way that they finished their season, and Oklahoma State not getting in, it's a tough situation for that team. Do I believe they should have gotten in over Oklahoma? I do. Obviously, you're going to have people watching this tournament. This thing is about, ratings and getting people to watch it. And Trae Young has been absolutely phenomenal all year long for Oklahoma. So the opportunity to have him in this tournament, given the situation that they've had, Lon Kruger's a good basketball coach, but I don't think they did enough, especially down the stretch, to get themselves in. I think Oklahoma State is just a better basketball team. And that's simply, I believe, what it came down to is I believe Oklahoma State's a better basketball team than Oklahoma, but the star power and factor of a guy in Trae Young being able to play in this tournament is something that folks are going to be watching. And honestly, I thought they got a little bit higher seed than what I thought they should have. And they are taking on a Rhode Island team that, yes, they struggled down the stretch a little bit themselves. Rhode Island is no joke out of the A-10. And I would not be surprised if Rhode Island took them out in that first round. But no, I believe Oklahoma State should have gotten in over Oklahoma given their situation.
Wow, yeah, definitely that, man. But moving on, right, because like I said, I ain't going to take up too much of time. In the NBA, all right, everybody would say Golden State and Cleveland. What do you think about that right now, man, the way it looks?
The title still goes through Golden State until they lose. That's kind of what it is at this point. The Golden State Warriors, yes, they're dealing with the injury with Stephen Curry right now. But this is a team that doesn't play for, number 1 and 2 seeds in the Western Conference. This is a team that all they're worried about is making sure that Stephen Curry's ready for Game 1 of the NBA Finals. Now, what'll be interesting to see down the stretch is if Houston can secure a number 1 seed, what that Western Conference Final would look like between the two of them. Because the question I believe that the Houston Rockets will have to answer, obviously, the most obvious question is who guards Kevin Durant and who can guard him effectively enough to try and put this team in a position where I believe Houston would have to outscore Golden State for 4 games to try and beat them in a 7-game series. James Harden's been phenomenal, averaging over 30 points, 10 assists per game. Chris Paul, playing well also at the point guard position. Allowed James Harden to be freed up where I believe James Harden will win the MVP this year. But all roads go through Golden State. When you got Stephen Curry at full strength, you've got Draymond Green, who's still a Swiss Army knife at that power forward position. And you still got a guy in Klay Thompson who can go get you 60 in 3/4, and has done that in the past. And, of course, you got the Slim Reaper and Kevin Durant still running around.
Right, definitely.
At full strength, dusted the Cavs in 5 games last year. So, all roads go through Golden State when it comes to the championship. And Cleveland is an enigma because at times they've looked dominant, and at times, like we saw against the Lakers the other night, when they gave up 127 points, defensively still struggle mightily on the defensive end, and consistency has just not been there for this team. I know ultimately their goal is to obviously, get to the East Final and find themselves in a situation where they're getting to the NBA Final. But Toronto's played extremely well. DeMar DeRozan expanded his game out to the three-point line. Kyrie Irving has been phenomenal for the Celtics. And currently, as it stands, the Cleveland Cavaliers sit in the 4th spot right now in the East. And the Indiana Pacers are up a half game on them if the season were to end today with a 3 seed. So will ultimately LeBron James and them get it together? I think they will, especially when they get healthy, when Tristan Thompson comes back, or Tristan Kardashian, whatever you want to call him, or Kevin Love when they come back. So I think they'll be fine, but a 2 or a 1 seed, it doesn't appear will be in the cards this year for the Cleveland Cavaliers. But honestly, they don't care at this point. With LeBron James being in year 15, they just want to find themselves at least in the Eastern Conference Final with a chance to get back to the NBA Finals. So,
I mean, honestly, because I'm gonna tell you what I feel. Honestly, do you think Cleveland can make it back?
I do.
You do?
And we've seen LeBron James take statistically the worst team in NBA history back in 2000. 2007. The NBA Finals. So you can take it with a guy in Daniel Gibson, who's now on Love and Hip Hop, to NBA Finals. You could take a team with Rodney Hood, Jordan Clarkson, and others to an NBA Finals. So I believe they still can. It'll just be a much tougher road this year, given what we've seen in years past from this Cavs team. But no, I think they still can get there.
Yeah, well, my wild card team, right? Because I seen them play last night, man. That Rip City team looking good, man. That Rip City team looking good. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Portland's been playing on their last 10 straight. Damian Lillard's been on fire for them. A guy who's, obviously put himself, I believe, as a top 5 MVP candidate, especially with his late run that he's had for this Portland Trail Blazers team. I still think that James Harden and Anthony Davis are at the top of the MVP list this year. But this is a dangerous basketball team, and that proverbial team that you don't want to see, quote unquote, when it comes to playoff time. But Dame Lillard is doing his thing. I know Fox earlier was singing his praises, and rightfully so, earlier today. And last night had 32 and 10 and beating his Miami Heat last night. So sorry, Ms. Monk, I didn't want to bring that up last night. But
hey man,
Portland's for real.
Yeah, and they got a kid, Alameen, from out of Georgia, man. That was he was the man back in his high school days. His career didn't start off like he wanted to in the NBA, but when Portland picked him up, man, he really started playing some ball, man, and to hold down that position for the last 3 to 4 years, that's big for him, man. But I definitely like that team, man. But like you said, the road goes through Cleveland and Golden State, and I feel this may be the best playoff series. It ain't gonna be no more blowouts like it was last year, man. It's gonna be some real good, interesting games. It's gonna keep us on the edge of our seat throughout the playoff, and I really feel that, man, because everybody they got better, especially in the East. Everybody got better, and John Walls will be back, so that team ain't gonna just get knocked out easily. Philly look like they want to do a little something, but they still too young. So the East is, to me, besides Cleveland, the East is wide open with everybody else, but